Hello, happy hump day and welcome to Wednesday. So today we're talking about change and people who are a catalyst for change. So if you think about through history, there's lots of people who immediately spring to mind as being huge catalysts for change. So people like Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King, and Emily Pankhurst and Jane Goodall. If you think about it in a career context or in the business world, you might think of people like Steve Jobs, Richard Branson, or Arianna Huffington. They're all people who have left or are leaving their mark because they've had an impact on how we live, what we do, and how we work. Change is always born out of a desire to do something better, to create something that's new, to leave where you are in a better place than where it was when you first started. That impact can be big, it can be small. And what that means is we all then have an opportunity to be a catalyst for change. Because if it's about change that's either big or small, all of us have that ability to influence, the ability to have an impact. The difference is just the scale of that impact. So if you think back to high school chemistry, you may recall that a catalyst is what makes a chemical reaction go faster. So if you think about that in the context of change, a change catalyst is someone who helps make the change in an organization or in a community or in society go that little bit faster. And how do they do that? Well, first, they accept that there's always a better way to do things. They take to heart the comments of Thomas Edison, who said, "We shall have no better conditions in the future if we're satisfied with all that we have at present." So in doing that, they're able to look to the future, they also learn from the past, and they balance what's needed in the present. So they understand that progress isn't about completely obliterating what we've done in the past, it's about learning from it. They also know how to use emotions and how to connect with people. They recognize that if you want to get people on board, if you want things to change, you can't just lay out facts and data. You need to make an emotional connection. You need to make it visual, make what needs to happen real. Chip and Dan Heath, in their great book about change called Switch, How to Change Things When Change is Hard and Make It Stick, recount the story of a urologist, Leon Bender. And he was frustrated because what he was finding is, despite all the efforts and the campaigns in hospitals, he wasn't getting people to wash their hands enough. And so they were getting the hand washing rate to about 80%. And they were trying to find ways to get that rate from 80 up to 100%. They hit 100% compliance after a committee of doctors and administrators were asked after lunch one day by an epidemiologist. So an epidemiologist is a person who studies disease, to press their hands into a sterile petri dish. This dish was then analysed and the results were shared. And what the results showed was that for the doctors, even though they thought for most of them that they'd washed their hands, they hadn't. And in fact, their hands were covered in bacteria. So to make sure that this knowledge was spread widely across the hospital, they had photographs around the hospital of that bacteria on the hands. They also had it saved as a screensaver. The result? Compliance rates for washing hands hit 100%. So when you think about it in the context of your organisation, what are the things that you're doing to make that need for change real, to make it visual, to make the emotional connection? So along with things like that, you're also thinking about how do you make the goals really clear so people know here's the current state, here's where it is that we're heading to. That you're making the goals achievable and in a time frame that is realistic. That you're continuing to show progress and you're making that progress visible. That you're working to eliminate the friction in the system that makes it harder for you to make that progress that you're looking to make. And that you're also making it safe to fail. Because when you're trying your new things, when you're trying to do something that you haven't done before, there is no doubt there will be failure. But how are you learning from that failure and making it safe for people to go, hey, this is what's happened, this is where I've had problems, but this is what I've learned from that. So with all of this, when you're a catalyst for change in your organization, you're not only lighting the spark for the change, you're looking at the processes that you're needing to have in place to make that change harder. So make that change easier and make it safer for people. Because when change is hard, people aren't going to want to change. So what are you doing to be the catalyst for change in your organization? What support are you providing to your team so that it's easier for the change to happen? Take care. I'll see you next week.